Hey, I'm Theo, and we really need to talk about JavaScript.
What are you doing here, Luke?
Never mind. I gotta go.
I'm back from Defcon, and I am so happy I went. What a crazy event. Huge shout out to Pirate Software for convincing me and a bunch of my crew to go this year. I never would have otherwise, and if it wasn't for him and Luke Lafreniere from Linus Tech Tips, I probably wouldn't have gone this year either. But they both wanted to go. I was super interested too. And boy, do I have a story to tell you guys. This was one of the coolest events I've been to. You should definitely go next year, by the way. Link in the description if you want to follow Defcon and attend next year. One more thing before we go further, though. A lot of our time was spent solving puzzles. As in, we were sitting in a hotel room solving puzzles while the event was going on. One of those puzzles is a puzzle I somehow was the only one to solve. And I have the whole story already recorded, ready to go. So if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed. It's coming out tomorrow. And if you're seeing this video over a day after it came out, go check my channel if you want to learn more about that puzzle. Anyways, let's talk about our actual Defcon experience. First, let's talk about my rooming situation, because it was really cool. If somehow you guys don't already know low-level learning, you should fix that. He's a fantastic YouTuber, one of my favorites. I watched almost all his videos. Good friend of the channel as well. Since we were doing Defcon, we decided to room together. And the rooming was him, me, my CTO Mark, and Luke from LTT. It was quite the crew. We had a ton of fun. And the place we got, it was so nice. This is just like the shared living room. We had two separate giant bedrooms with giant bathrooms that were like the size of my old apartment in SF. There's another couch on the side here, a whole fully stocked kitchen. It was awesome. And it's a shame we spent almost no time in here at all. The only person who actually spent time in here was Luke, because he had to film the WAN show from here using a bunch of my equipment on Friday, which was also just hilarious that he didn't bring enough equipment, so I lent him like my mic and a bunch of stuff. Ended up going fine. Awesome they could do that. But this hotel was awesome, and I was so excited to use it. And it's sad that we didn't, because we ended up spending most of our time just sitting in a tiny little hotel room that was maybe like 350 square feet with 8 people solving puzzles. I need to emphasize just how tiny this hotel room was. There was maybe, I was sitting on the couch here. This is Mark and Prime, God mode programming out a solution to one of the puzzles. And there was maybe 3 feet behind me. And that was the whole room. And we regularly had 8+ people in here. It was like me, Prime, Ed, Mark, Luke, 4 people who would prefer to stay mostly anonymous from Thor's friend group. Obviously, Thor was there as well. And we were just grinding these 13 puzzles nonstop. Again, if you want to learn more about those puzzles, make sure you're subbed. I have a video coming out all about those tomorrow. And we were in this room until like 6 a.m. most nights, just doing puzzles, even though the conference was going on. And that was probably the funniest part, that there was this huge hacker conference, but most of our experience was solving puzzles in a hotel room, a 20-minute Uber away from the actual con. That doesn't mean we weren't part of the conference here and there. We definitely got involved. One of the contests that was actually really cool was one being hosted by one of the people from this crew called Crash and Compile. It was a drinking programming contest. To enter, you had to do a pre-qualifier where you hit an endpoint, it would give you a puzzle, and you have to solve it and post with the new puzzle or with the solution, then it would respond with a new one. And you had to write a program that would hit this HTTP endpoint, parse the problem out of it, respond with the solution, parse the next problem, solve for 3 problems. I learned about this challenge at 2:50 p.m. on Friday. Qualifiers ended at 3 p.m. on Friday. I was sad. Prime and low level had entered and qualified, but we didn't because we didn't know about the deadline. Then I heard the deadline got extended because people didn't know about it, and I was hyped. So Mark and I sat down at 5:30 p.m. right on the couch that I'm sitting on here and started solving the problem. We had a solution, we submitted it, it started running, and then it started getting JSON parsing errors because it turned out the cutoff was 6 p.m. for the extension, and we were submitting at 5:59 p.m. So we didn't qualify because of that, and I was sad. It was our fault for not knowing. I'm not going to blame anyone for that but ourselves, but I would have absolutely been able to qualify for the Crash and Compile contest, and I'm sad I didn't. But I'm not that sad because Prime and Ed competed, and they came in last place, and that was much more entertaining than anything I could have done there. Anyways, that was one of the 3 contests I tried to partake in, and sadly, that was the one that I lost the hardest. One more cute photo. There's Prime and Thor in their Prime modes, hacking away, and in and out, which we totally didn't have like 3 days in a row. That absolutely didn't happen. What an absurd accusation. Obviously, I met a bunch of awesome people. Here's John Hammond. We met when we were watching Prime doing the Crash and Compile thing, which was very entertaining. I need to collab with John more. He's fucking awesome, and I wish we had more time to chat. Also, he outdid me on the hair, and I'm still mad about it. Like, I'm the tech YouTuber with good hair. Look at that. Look at the perfect form. Oof, not fair. Also, Vegas was ruining my hair and my skin. You can tell. But Yeah, it was great to meet John finally. We've been at like 4 conferences together and just never could meet, and finally we got to. Luke and I both tried to get hacked at Defcon. We both brought Android phones with old versions of Android and connected to every wireless hotspot we could just to see if we could intentionally get hacked on these old Android phones. And we had no luck. We tried our hardest. We connected to all the access points we could, and I just failed. I knew that DEF CON was the hacker conference, and I was so scared going in, locking down my phone and everything. And then I was unable to get hacked when I actually tried. So if you have this deeply set fear of DEF CON because you think you're going to get hacked there, you're going to like show up with no phone or whatever, you don't need to worry. No one's burning a 0 day at DEF CON. Nobody's going to use a hack that's not already public information that hasn't been patched out of your phone. So as long as you're running the most up-to-date version of Android or iOS, you're probably going to be fine. And even if you connect to random hotspots, I had no issues. And I was trying to get hacked. So yeah. That said, someone did get hacked at DEF CON, not because of them being at DEF CON or even really them getting hacked directly. Linus Tech Tips had their Twitter get hacked while Luke was at DEF CON. And you should definitely watch the WAN show on Friday because I'm sure they're going to talk a lot about that. And yeah, that was a fun one. Anyways, speaking of Luke, we should talk about Hack Fortress. It's a Team Fortress 2 plus hacking contest where both happen at the same time. Your team is composed of 2 parts. One part of the team is TF2 players and the other part is hackers. And the goal of the game is to get the most points in TF2 and also solve the most hacking puzzles. On top of that is a modded version of the game. So if the hackers solve a puzzle, they get points that they can apply to your team to like give you buffs, give you like the ability to kill people faster, give you automatic crits, heal you, stuff like that. And if you do well on the TF2 side, you're able to buy hints for the hackers. This seemed like a really good opportunity for us because I used to play a lot of TF2. And from what I had heard, the skill level of the play in this contest was relatively low because it was hackers playing TF2. Luke and I were so set to go because Luke and I have both played a lot of TF2. But you might notice something. Notice these headsets. Notice that they're pretty cheap gamer headsets. They had hardcore themed this contest to be red versus blue, which was awesome. It looked great, except the red team had red gear and the blue team had blue gear. And if you know anything in the gaming space, you know the red stuff tends to be the cheap stuff and the blue stuff tends to be the less cheap stuff. These headsets could not have cost more than $3 each. And the mice we had were $5 mice from like the early 2010s with terrible lasers where if you would lift the mouse up like straight up like over an inch, it would still somewhat move. So if you play TF2 or any shooter even somewhat decently, you can't whip, you can't lift, you can't fucking play. So we couldn't aim, we couldn't turn, we couldn't do anything because of this. The other team had $100 Razer mice. Not even kind of fair. Thankfully, afterwards, they recognized that and they swapped gear around to be a bit more fair, but we just straight up couldn't aim. I had to play Pyro, and I don't play Pyro. But if you know anything about TF2, you know that Pyro can be played with a steering wheel because aim doesn't matter. So, yeah, we lost this one, and I was heartbroken because both Luke and I are good TF2 players. We lost to a bunch of hackers, and they weren't even hacking. So I felt terrible about that loss. So we had to win something. And boy, did we win Goldbug. As I mentioned, there are 14 puzzles, 13 core puzzles, and a 14th meta puzzle. Music Box drove us mad. You got 100 points for each puzzle you solved. Psychoholics was the team. And we solved every puzzle except for music and meta, which put us at 1,200 points. So we did end up winning this. We were working on these puzzles basically around the clock for the whole 3 days of the event. And as crazy as it was, we did it. And I was so proud. If you're not already following me on LinkedIn, I'm T3GG there. You should give me a follow. I'm stuck shitposting on LinkedIn more nowadays. But I posted the photo of us winning. Yes, the YouTubers won the hacker contest. I was so proud of that. I was so genuinely proud that we could somehow, as the YouTube guys, succeed in this insane challenge. One of the puzzles, and again, spoiler warning for those who actually want to go and try these after the fact, not expecting many will, but in case you are one of the people that wants to, I don't want to take that from you. Etiquette. This is the first puzzle where Prime really God moded. So we have this blurb of text that is somebody's grandmother gave them a book. The only thing in here that's particularly notable, and credit to Mark for noticing this, was yellow dog-eared pages. This is important because when you look at the PDF, it has a bunch of lines drawn on it. And we had no idea what to do with those. Our first assumption, once we realized they were dog-eared, is that we'd have to fold based on the lines and see what letter it pointed at. But Prime was already trying to decode this and figure out how it worked. So he wrote a script in Python that went through each page and grabbed the lines, and he made a graphic that showed how all of the lines like appeared, and we got nothing out of it. Someone had the theory that when you folded all the pages and closed the book, it would say the word on the side. But there's 444 fucking pages, so that just didn't seem possible. I was 100% convinced the solution was not folding all 444 pages because it made no sense at all. Eventually, Prime updated a script to do that, to fold all the pages, keep track of the top and bottom where like the fold of each one ended, and then draw those out. And it did spell a word, and that ended up being the answer. So huge shout out to Prime for actually figuring out some scripted way to detect the lines, fold the pages, and then show it. Because we were about to literally print out all 444 pages and fold it by hand. We were so close to doing that. We were the only ones who solved this one for a while, but Goldbug ended up giving a hint. Did anybody else end up solving etiquette? Yeah, 2 other teams ended up solving it. To be fair, they give a pretty big hint for it here, where they show that like this is what you have to do. Yeah, chaos. Huge shout out to Prime for coding his way through that one. He killed it with the code stuff. Most of my scripts didn't end up being useful, but my scripts were useful not because they solved the problem, but because they so well didn't solve the problem that it was clear the path we were going was the wrong way. Super fun. Loved this puzzle challenge. It was so fun having a bunch of programmers, YouTubers, and hackers collaborating in this way. And the fact that we could solve it before even having that hint, so cool. I loved this. Fantastic time, fantastic challenges. Specifically, I want to shout out Pascal for doing chess, Music Box, and also helping me with hints for Music Box after the puzzles were already done. Tons more context in my full video about it coming soon. Check that out. One last shout out to Crypto Village for making this all possible. You guys killed it this year. This particular puzzle was super fun. This one was multi-parts. It started with Cirque Mystique here. And this was all different animals with different things on them. If I recall, it was order the animals alphabetically and then get the first letter for what each of them is holding, and it spelt out words. What it ended up spelling out was oral page tune. 3 words, 12 characters. Cool. Then the next one, Cage Show Pity. This one, I feel so bad for Thor still. This was a crazy figure out what number each of the bottles represents and then decode it so that you had words. I'm not going to do justice to this one. So this ended up being insane. Thor is a math god, so he was able to solve the math part of this one relatively quick. But the answer ended up being like, what was it? Rot left, drop last or something? Thor spent a bunch of time on the math, got the rot left, drop last thing, and they had no idea what to do with that. Because when you get an output for some shit like this, usually you can't get more than one output from here. You just get the thing it says. But as Gurn just mentioned in chat, they had the answer for 14 hours, but they didn't know how to read it. I don't even understand what the solution ended up being, but I think it was they literally just rotated this and then read the answer vertically. And it ended up being, for that one, it was Cage Show Pity. The next one wasn't too bad. It was the Curvile Axe. This one was really interesting. The flag was a country, obviously, and the thing here was a bad translation of a phrase from that nation. So in Japan, hedgehog gets translated effectively to pin rodent, or is it like pin rat or something? So we had to figure out that this meant hedgehog and then do that for all of these AI generated pictures. And then from there, we got another word, another 3 words, which is Curvile Axe. And then we got the swords. Oh boy, the swords. This one had a lot of interesting hints that confused us. And this one is the reason I'm talking about this. I didn't think it was going to be yet another video nerding out about Goldbug, but here we are. It was really fun and took over my life for 4 days. So here we had 12 daring swordsmen across pages discovered, but 9 should their number be. Who among these valiant souls is a veritable villain, a masquerading menace? Can you discern the deception, detect the duplicity, witness the wonder, and wield your wits? Match swallower with swallowed and suss out the imposters. So we have 9 swords here, all AI generated with 3-letter text on them. And we had something that was 12. There was 3 words for each of these parts of the URL. And we had done that 4 times now. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12. So we have to figure out how to combine these swords with those words to have 12. There's a couple other helpful hints in here. Match swallower with swallowed, detect the duplicity, and if we check the source for the page, they had a comment at the bottom here. The hungriest swordsman, the pickiest eater. We were going mad. we thought we would take the first letter of the words, because we had like oral page 2, so take the O, the P, and the T, and combine those with the things here. And whichever ones didn't combine would have to be the ones that were wrong. That didn't work. We did know, though, that there had to be 3 remaining words out of the 12, and that would be the answer. So I wrote some more scripts. Let me see if I can find these ones quick. I grabbed all of the swordsmen, all of the words. I wrote a function to grab every permutation of those. I generated all of the permutations for those to figure out. Also, there was one last thing on the page. We had this here, this random code. This, we pretty quickly figured out what it had to be, because this is hex up to 12. 0 through A would be 10, and B would be 11. That's 12. So if we were to arrange 3 words in order and take the 7th character, put that there, take the 4th character, put that there, first or 2nd character, it's not 7th, it's 8th, because 0 index, you get the idea. Do that for all the letters. This should spit something out. So I took every combination of words, split it, printed it, and then would check like the 3 chunks. So this was like the first word, the second word, and the third word. And I would check if these are a valid output or not. And I would check that by taking every single valid Scrabble word that's 4 characters long and checking that way. This did not work. So the way I had this set up is I would run this script, and it would spit out all of the things where 2 of the words were correct, were grammatically real words according to Scrabble rules. So here we see Lewis and Nair are words, TDCA isn't. And I did this for all of them. Despite having 17,000 permutations or so, I was only able to get this many that were close. And they weren't that close. But I kept staring at the page and thinking about the words. And I knew one of the words specifically was cage. And I was overthinking this because cage and rib combine to rib cage. Maybe we need to combine the full words instead of just the first letter in the sword. I shit you not, within seconds of me saying that, with Gurn next to me, he just goes through and lists all of the words like that. His brain works that way. He could just look at this list of words, look at these 3-letter things here, and just combine them. It was insane. I've never seen somebody's brain who just works that way. Let me find the list. Nice. So this is a message where I was just keeping track of the things Gurn was saying. I still can't believe he just like locked in for that as hard as he did. And he was just reading off the words. Like he figured out oral plus bit was orbital. He figured out page plus ass was passage. Tune plus rib was tribune. And remember the hint earlier about the swallowing of the swords? That's what he had figured out, is the swallower and swallowed. You actually had to put the word here, the sword, inside of the other word. I don't know how he like literally did this in like 45 seconds. Some people's brains just are different, and Gurn's is insane. So he was able to lock in and get this within under a minute. And we figured out the remaining words were pity, help, and sail. If you saw, I had those commented out in my code. I go back up here. Yeah, I was putting them all in the code here, but didn't end up mattering because he figured it out too fast. So he knew it was pity, help, and sail. So I did this. I ran it. It didn't have correct words still. And that's when I made the change I had there, where I had the append file. Sure, I'll put that there again. Run the script one more time. And now we had all of these. Did not seem right. Also, I don't know how I got the nans. I don't know what I did wrong there. But someone else was also scripting it, and they ended up getting it. This ended up being the actual outputs. Most of these were nonsense. But this one, Philip Astley. It's not 3 words like we were used to, but it's not total nonsense. Philip Astley ended up being correct for that one. I still don't know what the answer was to this one, but they figured it out in seconds and got the final answer from here. Ugh, craziness. If you liked this breakdown, please watch the video I'm putting out tomorrow. You're going to like that even more. I go really deep on the puzzle that drove me insane. I just wanted to showcase how God Mode Gurn went. I just wanted to showcase how God Mode Gurn went for this one because he killed it. It wouldn't be Defcon if we didn't bring up the badge. This thing's insane. It was one of the first ever products using the new Raspberry Pi. It came out the same day as Defcon, by the way. They released the new Raspberry Pi, and it was inside of this all the same day. Super cool. It has a full Game Boy emulator in it, and they made a Defcon themed game that's in it. And there was also a bunch of drama about this badge. I'm not going to go into the drama because I don't want to cover drama from Defcon. I just want to cover the cool parts of Defcon. But this was really cool. The fact they had an actual like battery enclosed LEDs, speakers, a full on like handheld device that just also happened to be your badge. You also could transmit things between the badges with RFID and like send updates and programs between each other and shit. It was like insane. Like, this is just a cool device that happened to also be our badge for Defcon. Wanted to include that because I thought it was awesome. They tend to run out of these, so the only way to guarantee yourself one was to pre-order your badge ahead of time. I pre-ordered because I wanted to have a ticket ready to go. Yeah. As you can tell, Defcon was kind of crazy. I'm so happy I went, and if you guys want to rot in Vegas sweating your asses off with us next year, you should go as well. Until next time, peace, nerds.